Hey, my name is Curt Jordan and I'm here at Parkour Visions. I wanted to teach you today how to progress into doing proper pull-ups. The reason why learning how to do proper pull-ups is essential is because over a long period of time, if you're not pulling from the correct places, you're going to hurt your neck, your back, or your elbows. One thing I want to do for this video is dispel any rumor that pull-ups is mostly an arm movement. You really want to be strengthening the back when doing a proper pull-up. So if you want to learn how to do proper pull-ups, you need to know how the scapula moves. And the scapula move in 6 directions. They have retraction, which is important for pull-ups, and protraction. We want to keep them retracted. The scapula also can elevate and depress, and we want to make sure that they are down and depressed. But they can also do an upwards rotation and a downwards rotation. And we want them to stay downwardly rotated when we're doing pull-ups. Proper pull-up progressions can be split up into 5 different categories. First being active hangs and bat wings, second being rows, third being active hangs, fourth being negatives, and the 5th finally being pull-ups. When moving through these different progressions, it's important to keep in mind that everybody's going to start at a different place. Some people are going to be overweight, and it'd be like doing pull-ups with a weight vest on. Some people aren't going to have a lot of muscle, and they're going to have to start a little bit lower. So everyone's going to have a different initial starting point. The first progression to do a good pull-up is to be able to do a really good bat wing. To do a good bat wing, you want your students to be able to pull the weights up and alongside their body by retracting their shoulders and keeping them down. Make sure the shoulders don't come forward. If you see this, then they're not pinching their shoulder blades enough and they need to get their shoulders down and back. Have them pull their elbows closer together, push them up to the ceiling, and have a big pinch in the back. So if you don't have access to either the bench nor a vault box or weights that are equal pounds, then just use a bar and have them activate, but don't let their shoulders come up. Keep them down and pinch the back and just hold. Once your students can do 30 seconds, then you can move to the next progression. Along with bat wings, you also want your students to be doing active hangs for their first progression. To instruct a good active hang, you want your student to have their shoulders not covered up by their, or not having their ears covered up by their arms, but you want them to pull their shoulders back and down, activating that same place, just like in a bat wing. After your students are able to perform bat wings and active hangs for 30 seconds each and 3 times each, then you can move them to the next progression of rows. Now there are 4 different types of progressions for rows. And the first one you want to start with is a high body elevated row. So from here, we're going to use that bat wing principle of keeping the shoulders down and back. And what you're going to do is you're going to have them start with having their hands facing down, and you're going to have them pinch their back, pulling themselves up and turning the hands over to the front. When your students are doing rows, you want them to make sure that they have a straight and solid body line. Think of it like a moving plank or the opposite of a push-up. You want them to row up as one unit. What you might see is you might see their hips too far back. And if that's the case, you need to squeeze their glutes more. Or what you might see is as they're rowing up, they're going to arch too much back. And that's because their abs are not activated enough. So have them squeeze their glutes and their abs as tight as they can while they're doing their row. Another thing to watch out for is what I call chicken necking. If they're rowing up and looking up at the same time, it's going to cause a lot of stress on the neck. So what you want to do is have them keep their chin neutral as they're rowing up. Once they can do 10 rows 5 times at this high body elevated position, you can start having them move deeper and deeper into their row until their arms are going to be directly under the place that they're going to be rowing from. So just move a little bit more in. Good. So once they're directly under, then you're going to have them continue to do the same type of row that they were doing when their body was elevated. Having something to block the feet will make it so they won't kind of shift out while they're trying to perform their rows. The next progression is to have your students elevate their feet. Go ahead. So you want them to start with their hips and low back off of the floor, and they're going to row up in the same type of position, keeping a straight body line. After someone can do elevated rows, you want them to widen out their hands for Bulgarian rows. Otherwise, it's the same thing. They're lifting their hips up, keeping a straight body line, pinching the back, keeping the shoulders down and back, not lifting the chin, and lifting up, except they're gonna rotate their hands to 90 degrees and their elbows are gonna be at about 90 degrees, and they're gonna come down again. In order to be strong in any type of a movement, you wanna be strong in both the beginning and ending phases of that movement. That means for doing a pull-up, you wanna have a good, strong, active hang, and you also want to have a good, strong top hold as well. When you start teaching your students how to do a top hold, you want to have their hands be facing them. This is going to let their shoulders be set back in their sockets easier. It's going to let them use their arm muscles a little bit more. And you want to make sure that when they're in their top hold, that their back is not extending too much. When you see your students' back overextended, have them try to get their ribs down into their hips for a straight line. Once your students can hold that top hold position for 30 seconds and 3 times, I want you to be able to have them turn their hands out, hold that top hold position for 30 seconds 3 times. And then you're ready for negatives. Now that your students are ready for negatives, you can have them jump up to the bar, or you can help them up, and they're gonna try to keep their shoulders retracted and depressed, lowering themselves down for 10 seconds, keeping their elbows in their back pockets for as long as they can. When they can do that for 10 seconds, 5 times, you are finally ready to do a pull-up. So when doing negatives and when starting pull-ups, it's okay to give your students some assistance, but you want to give them as little assistance as they need and make them do most of the work. So when you're doing a proper pull-up, make sure they go into a nice active hang, keep depressing those scapula, retracting those shoulder blades as best as they can, and pulling up, getting those elbows down into the pockets, feeling a big pinch down here. Then lowering down nice and slow. To reiterate a few key points, you want your students to keep their shoulders back and down. You don't want them to lift their chin, keep it neutral. You also want their body line not to extend too much, having good ab and glute tension. And you want to make sure that they feel a big, strong pinch in the back. Remember, this is a back movement, not a primary arm movement. So now you know how to progress yourselves going all the way through to a proper pull-up. It's going to take a lot of work, but it's something you're going to have to earn, and it's going to keep you healthy over a long period of time. I'm Curt Jordan here at Parkour Visions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.